I'm Hannah Blackwell, and today I'm going to be recommending you books for every single prompt for Once Upon a Readathon. So a few things before we get started. I want to caveat this with, these are not all of the books that I know will fit all of the prompts. There's a whole bunch of books that will fit these prompts. These are just specific recommendations that I think are good books that also fit in with the prompts. Also, I am purposely not including any books that are on my November TBR for Once Upon a Readathon, many of which would actually cover all of the prompts in each step. So make sure that you check out that video when it comes out, because I'll have a lot more recommendations for books that you could check out to fulfill your prompts. If you don't know what Once Upon a Readathon is, it is a readathon that I am hosting in November along with 16 other amazing co-hosts who will be linked down below. So make sure that you check the video out as well that I have linked down below that will explain to you what Once Upon a Readathon is, what it entails, what the prompts are, and you can even listen to me tell you my very own fairy tale that I wrote for the readathon itself. I am super pumped for these recommendations. Most of them are going to be books that I have read before, but some of them will be books that I really want to read that I also know do fit the prompts. Some of these prompts I'm going to be recommending multiple books, and some of them I'll just recommend one. It's just going to depend on the prompt, because I also am going to try to stick with my physical books so that I don't have to pop up too much up here on the screen when I'm editing. Also, before we get into this, I do want to let you know that I have all of my social media linked down below, including my Goodreads, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter, if you want to follow me on any of those social media platforms. If you have not already subscribed, please consider doing so. It helps my channel grow, and you'll be able to get notified for any Once Upon a Readathon content coming up. You can also click the notification bell if you want to be notified anytime those videos do pop up. If you like this video, please go ahead and click the like button, and please let me know, what books are you excited to read for Once Upon a Readathon? Let's just get into it, starting with the first step. For the first step of researching the apple tree, in the first step, the first of the 3 prompts is to read a book featuring royalty. Now, not every book on this recommendations video is going to be a fairy tale or fairy tale retelling, but this one will be. But you don't have to read anything fairy tale related or myth related or folktale related for this readathon. For a book featuring royalty, I have Nettle and Bone by T. Kingfisher. This is a nice and short one, so this will help you if you just want to do one prompt for this. You can read this book and go right through to the next step, and it's super short, and it's a really fun read about a princess. And she wants to save her sister from an evil prince, and in order to do so, she gathers a group of companions together to go on a quest to save her sister. This group of companions includes a fairy godmother, a witch, a disgraced knight, and a demonic chicken, along with a dog made out of bones. It's very eclectic, very fun, a little bit dark, so make sure you check trigger warnings, but I really enjoyed this one, and it would work perfectly for the prompt of royalty. So the next prompt is a retelling, and for that I'm going to recommend The Bear and the Nightingale by Catherine Arden. This is one of my favorite books of all time. I have read it twice, yet I still haven't continued on with the series. You can bet you will see those on my upcoming TBR video, but this book is wonderful, and it is a retelling of actually a few different Russian folklore stories. And this is super atmospheric, beautifully written, character driven. And when you read this, this will totally get you into the cool weather feels. It basically transports you into the freezing cold Russian wilderness. I definitely recommend this book, and it will be a perfect retelling for this prompt. Other retellings that would work for this: Neon Gods by Katie Robert, which is a super spicy Hades and Persephone retelling that I have not yet finished, and Uprooted by Naomi Novik, which is a Beauty and the Beast retelling about a girl who gets taken away by a wizard named the Dragon in order to keep him protecting her village from this haunted forest. I will also be doing a whole retellings recommendation video coming up, so make sure you keep an eye on that. But that's just a few, but there's a lot that I've read. But those are just a few that I also have on my shelves. The next prompt for this step is to read a book whose title includes the words once, upon, a, or time. You only need one of those 4 words. For hard mode, you need 2 of those words in the title. I am allowing this to include series titles. So if the series is, for example, Once Upon a Dukedom by Lorraine Heath, that is a series that she has written. Now, the actual book titles don't include Once Upon a Time, but the series does. It's called Once Upon a Dukedom, and that series, I would include any book in that series for hard mode, for example. So this also means that I would include anything from The Wheel of Time to complete this prompt. Obviously, that would not complete hard mode though. Another book that will complete this prompt is Children of Time and A Discovery of Witches. So for step 2 of this readathon, we have Find the Map to the Apple Tree. And the first prompt for this step is to read a book with a map. A few books that have maps that I'm a huge fan of. The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson has probably my favorite map in a fantasy book. Another book with a map is Malice by John Gwynne, or basically probably anything by John Gwynne. Also, if you haven't started the realm of the Elderlings, I definitely recommend Assassin's Apprentice. The next prompt is a recently acquired book. Now, obviously, I can't really recommend you that one because that is totally determined on what books you have recently acquired. And as I have already said, this can be a book that you have physically acquired, a book that is an ebook that you maybe downloaded recently, and that can even include a book that you have downloaded recently from either your library or from Kindle Unlimited, or a book that you've checked out recently from your library, or even a book that you have borrowed from a friend recently. And the final prompt for this step is a book with red, orange, brown, or yellow on the cover, and the Book of Gothel would get you hard mode, which is 2 of those colors on the cover. And as you can see, there's like a mustard yellow in some of these flowers. The braid is orange, and there's even some red in some of the flowers on this cover as well. So this would definitely get you hard mode. I've talked about it a little bit before on my channel. It's a villain origin story about Rapunzel, and well, the main character is Dame Gothel, but it kind of takes a twist on it. So it's not a classic retelling. It's more telling you the true life of Dame Gothel, and it's very atmospheric and character driven and a really beautiful story that is a wonderful read for fall, I really believe, because it has gorgeous descriptions of food and the forest and vegetable gardens, and I adored this book. Another book that will get you hard mode for this is Mexican Gothic, as we have the girl on the cover whose dress is red and she's holding these yellow flowers, or you could call them orange, but either way, this gets you 2 of those colors on the cover, and this book is a really awesome Gothic horror story that I adored. So now we are moving on to the third step, which is to gather companions. So the first prompt for this step is to read a book with a romance in it. So this is so broad because I really feel like most books have some kind of romance in it. Even epic fantasies, you see certain characters getting together, and also you find that in sci-fi or even sometimes like thrillers. But obviously any romance book that you read would be wonderful for this prompt as well. One book that I might recommend that is not super heavy on the romance is Juliet Marlier's Dreamer's Pool, because this is super ethereal. I feel like because it's set on the edge of a forest in Ireland, it is really autumnal. And it gives you these cozy vibes, and it's very fairy tale-esque. This is like a soft magic system fairy tale feeling of a fantasy book that is also a mystery. So if you like mysteries, you should definitely check this one out. And also, how flippin' gorgeous is that cover? I'm in love with it. A lot of the books that I've loved that are romances, I don't have physical copies of, but one that I did really enjoy was The Duke and I, which is the first book in the Bridgerton series by Julia Quinn. Another series that is also a retelling of Beauty and the Beast, the first book is A Court of Thorns and Roses, and this features a romance in it, and I think it would also be really fitting for the readathon because, like I said, it is a Beauty and the Beast retelling. And finally, two of my favorite romance novels happen to both be by Katie Roberts. One is The Dragon's Bride, and so if you want to read something a little bit beastly but fairy tale-esque too, because I mean the cover, it's very, very ethereal. But this is about a woman who is down on her luck, and she makes a deal to be with this dragon. And he is basically a cinnamon roll of a dragon, and things get really steamy really fast, and it's just a really fun read. Another book by Katie Roberts that I really enjoyed is a much darker romance, and that's Desperate Measures. And this is also like a loose retelling because this is the first book in her Wicked Villains series, where she retells these Disney stories, but with the villain as the hero. And so this is Jasmine and Jafar from Aladdin. And this is a super steamy book, lots of trigger warnings. There's a lot of dubious consent and consent, non-consent, voyeurism, lots of super kinky fun times. And I really, really dug this one as well. I've actually read it twice. The next prompt is a book featuring family. I would say the Farseer trilogy would work as well, but specifically I felt like Ship of Magic, it's all about this one family who they are live ship traders, and lots of family drama ensues. And I cannot wait to continue on with this series. It is chonky, super chonky. So I guess if you feel like you can fit this into your TBR, have at it. I definitely recommend, like when I think of family drama, I think of this book. I don't know what it is about family stories that make me think of these chunky books, but another one is The Sword of Kaigan that really looks at our main character, who is a mother, and also her son, and her relationship with her husband, and her basically trying to find her way through her past life as a warrior and her current life as a mother, and what that means. So lots of family featured in The Sword of Kaigan as well. If you want something a little bit shorter, Nettle and Bone, which I already mentioned, features family because we do have a lot of our main character talking to her mother, and obviously the whole quest in this book is about her trying to save her sister. Finally, the last prompt is a new to you author, the hard mode being a debut author. So I cannot really recommend a new to you author because that depends on what books you've read before. But for a debut author, I can definitely recommend Cass Kay's Legacy Witches. I adored this book. Pretty sure I gave it 5 stars. It's not super long. This is a paranormal urban fantasy mystery, and it's definitely very dark, but it's fast-paced, really fun, and just a really cool mystery book altogether. I just had a really enjoyable time with this one. This was her first book. So I will say that for this hard mode, it does have to be the author's first book that they've published, and they can't have published anything else yet. So this has to be a currently debut author if you want to complete the hard mode prompt for this step. Okay, so for our 4th step, our first prompt is a book with magic, and that will basically be any fantasy book that you have read. But I will say a book with magic that maybe not one that you've thought of before that I enjoyed was Slewfoot by Brom. I gave this 3.5 stars. It wasn't my favorite writing style. I wanted it more atmospheric, but it was quite atmospheric and very enjoyable, and I liked the magic in here. I also had a lot of fun with this cozy mystery that I just read, A Spell for Trouble by Esme Addison. This is a cozy mystery about a witch. And if you want to go a step further and read a book that has magic in it and also magic in the title, you could also read A Pinch of Magic, which is one of my favorite middle grade books. This is also a book that features family, so you can use it for that. You can use it for that step as well, but you can't use it for a prompt in both steps. But A Pinch of Magic is about these 3 sisters who are discovering a little bit of magic that might be held in their family's history, and they get themselves into a little bit of trouble and need to get themselves out. Finally, I'm going to recommend a book that will get you all of the prompts in this step, and that includes a book with magic, a historical setting, and a book that's over 300, hard mode over 450 pages. And that is The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern, a 5-star read for me, an all-time favorite book. This book is extremely magical. It is set in, I believe it's Victorian London, if I'm not mistaken, but it's a historical setting, and it is about 500 pages. So this will get you 350 points just in one book. Definitely recommend it. Absolutely adored. For a historical setting, you could also basically read any historical romance or any historical fantasy as well. Another historical fantasy that I really enjoyed was Wildwood Dancing. This is also a retelling of the 12 Dancing Sisters or 12 Dancing Princesses. I don't know. This is a retelling of the 12 Dancing Princesses, and I absolutely adored it. It's set in, I believe it's set in Romania. I could be wrong. I'll put that up on the screen. And it is really, really enchanting and beautiful, and it is historical as well. And then for a book over 300 or 450 pages, that's just so broad, you choose. But like I said, a great book for completing all of your prompts, including hard mode, is Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. The final step we have is to climb the apple tree. And in order to climb the apple tree, your first prompt is to read a book with a conflict. Literally, this is something that I wrote in to be kind of a little tricky, because actually, technically, almost every single book, unless it's like a nonfiction, but even nonfictions generally do have a conflict. A conflict is a part of a plot line, so there has to be some kind of conflict. Whether that means it's a battle or an argument, an issue between two characters where they're not getting along, there is bound to be a conflict in any book. For this, if you want to think about like major conflicts, you have Prior of the Orange Tree, because we have two sides of this world totally disagree on whether dragons are good and evil. We have the Faithful and the Fallen series, where there's a giant conflict between giants and humans, and there's a god war coming. So this whole book surrounds the god war, which is a giant conflict. And then we also have The Ocean at the End of the Lane by Neil Gaiman, which surrounds a big conflict between this child and their new nanny. Oops. Okay, so yeah, this surrounds a much smaller conflict, but to this child, it is like the center of his world, and there's all sorts of conflicts in this book as well. It is a novella. It looks a little bit thicker in this copy because this is an illustrated edition. So, but I definitely recommend this book. It is beautifully, beautifully written. I'm a huge fan of Neil Gaiman's writing. The next prompt is a poll pick. So that's 100% up to you. You can do a poll on any kind of social media. You can do a poll amongst your family members. You can do a poll on the poll section in the Discord if you'd like, which is linked down below. But any way that you want to do a poll, you are more than welcome to do it. And you'll basically just offer a few different options of books. You can do it with emojis. You can do it by actually telling the people like what books they are, however you want to do it. And the people who you poll will choose your book for you. If you're a mood reader, I would even allow you to do a poll of the genre of book. If you want to poll people on whether or not you should read a thriller, a fantasy, or a romance, feel free to do that. Finally, we have an unlikable or morally gray character. So this can be any number of grimdark books, especially. But a lot of books actually have unlikable or morally gray characters. Obviously, any horror book or thriller book will count. I would say that The Blade itself is a great example of a book with morally gray and unlikable characters, and I really enjoyed the whole First Law trilogy. And in order to read a book where the main character or one of the main characters is the villain, you could read any book in the Disney Villains series, because though they're not the villains in these particular stories, they're generally morally gray for sure, but they're not the villains in these particular stories. They are technically the villains from the original Disney stories. So, for example, Jafar is the hero in Desperate Measures, and I would totally count this for the villain as the main character. I would also say any book in A Song of Ice and Fire series would count as a villain main character as well. A lot of the main characters in this whole series are villains. They are villains in one of the other main characters' eyes, and that 100% counts as a villain as the main character. Okay, so like I said, these ideas and these recommendations do not cover all of the possible reads that you could pick up for these prompts. These are just a few ideas that I wanted to offer you if you were stumped on any of the prompts. And I'm also going to have my TBR up soon. I'm also going to be posting a TBR that is not going to include any of the books that I mentioned today. And that will give you hopefully more ideas of books that you might be able to pick up. Dominish Books also posted an awesome recommendations video as well. In his announcement, he included lots of recommendations. So I'm going to link that down below for you to check out. Make sure you're following all of the co-hosts because I know plenty of them have recommendations coming out and also TBRs of their own that could give you ideas for books that you might read for these prompts. If you haven't already signed up for the Readathon, I'm going to go ahead and put the form down below for you to sign up for the Readathon. And obviously, I already said I do have the Discord link down below. I'm going to have the Google Drive link down below as well, so you can check out all of the fun Readathon stuff, including like all the graphics that you can share. And you can read the fairy tale, check out the prompts for yourself, all that jazz. If you like this video, please click the like button. If you haven't already subscribed, please click the subscribe button as well. And if you click the notification button, you can be notified every time I post new videos. Leave me a comment down below and let me know what books you're looking forward to reading for the Readathon. Let me know if you already signed up. Let me know what team you are on. We have 5 amazing teams. And obviously, I'm a little bit partial to Team Princesses. Thank you so much for tuning in to this video. Until next time, fellow readers, keep reading and living your best life.
Try to stay strong and fake a smile until I look away. But I've known you too long, it hurts to watch